So in this video, we're going to be looking at Tombé pas de bourrées and Chassé pas de bourrées. I know there can be some confusion in how both terms differ from each other. So we're going to look at what both terms mean and how to do them both correctly. And then at the end, I'm going to share a few common mistakes and a particular pet peeve of mine around Tombé pas de bourrées and how to avoid this and make sure that they always look beautiful. Starting off with the definitions. So tombé in French comes from the verb to fall. So we are literally falling onto our leg, and we do this landing in a fondu. If we are doing a tombé pas de bourrée en avant, meaning traveling forwards, and this is the most common, then you will fall onto your working leg. It will become your supporting leg because we pick up our back leg into a low arabesque derrière. Then your back leg will join with your front leg and you'll complete your pas de bourrée. However, there are two kinds of tombé pas de bourrées depending on the school that you train at. And the second very common type of a tombé pas de bourrée involves a glissé of the front leg. So we'll slide the front leg ever so slightly before we do our fondu into our low arabesque and finish with a pas de bourrée. So confusingly, most schools will refer to both of these versions as tombé pas de bourrées, and it will usually just be up to your teacher whether they like doing the one where you go straight into the fondu or the one with a slight glissé. However, there are some schools that will refer to the glissé version as a chassé pas de bourrée, particularly if the glissé part is really drawn out. So you might do a tombé pas de bourrée with a really deep slide, and you'll find some teachers who call this a chassé pas de bourrée. However, for most schools, a true chassé pas de bourrée will involve the foot staying flat on the floor and sliding, passing through a fourth position before we go into our pas de bourrée. And you could even accompany this with a coupé, so this would be coupé chassé pas de bourrée. In RAD, we pick up the back foot, we switch, slide that front foot along the floor and finish with a pas de bourrée. This is because chassé comes from the verb to chase in French. So you have the front leg sliding away and then the back leg chasing it. So basically, keep three different types of tombé chassé pas de bourrées in mind. You've got your standard tombé pas de bourrée, we go straight into a fondu. You've got your tombé pas de bourrée with a glissé, that's sometimes called a chassé pas de bourrée, and this glissé can be drawn out a little bit. And then you've got your standard chassé pas de bourrée, where the sole of the foot maintains contact with the floor as you slide. It's kind of confusing, I know, but don't worry, we're going to look at the technique involved for each of them. So for all of these chassé or tombé pas de bourrées, you'll typically be traveling forwards. They can be done backwards, but it is more common to do them forwards, especially in a pirouette exercise. And they will also usually be done on a diagonal. So you'll want to keep your hips facing that diagonal at all times. Don't let them open out towards your audience. As you fondu, you'll want to keep your supporting knee over your foot so there's no rolling. Then if it's a tombé, really focus on keeping the turnout of both legs as you fondu on one and extend the other into arabesque. If it's a chassé, use your plié and press into the floor. There are lots of different arms that you can do for any of these. I would say one of the most common would be passing through first and then second position, but you might also pass through first and then fourth, or you might even open one arm and then the other, opening out to second. Now typically this version will be done in a grand allegro exercise, and it will be followed by a glissade and then a jump. So, well, a glissade is a jump, but a glissade and then a bigger jump. So you could have tombé pas de bourrée, glissade, and then maybe assemblée, grand jeté, pas de chat, for example. Common mistakes. So let's start off with the pas de bourrée, because this can make or break your tombé or chassé pas de bourrée. You must close the feet to fifth position after you've finished your tombé or your chassé. Because if there is a gap between the feet, it will never look clean. It will always look messy and clunky. So let's say we've done a tombé. You must then squeeze your feet together in fifth position, no gaps, before they open slightly. This gap here does not need to be big, and then will close typically in a plie. So that's one of the key ways to instantly make your pas de bourrées look cleaner. But next, the greatest pet peeve of mine is when dancers fall heavily onto their tombé leg, and often this is then accompanied by not closing the fifth position in the pas de bourrée, and it can look something like this. So even though tombé literally translates as fallen in French, in ballet we will always fall gracefully. So a great tip for refining your tombé pas de bourrées is to cushion the landing of your fondu, really squeeze into that fondu, then squeeze the legs together in the pas de bourrée, and you might even want to play with timing slightly. You might want to slow down the tombé and speed up the pas de bourrée so it's neat and fast. So try implementing these changes in your tombé and chassé pas de bourrées. I hope this video helped to clear up any confusion. If you have a different term that you use for any of these steps, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I know when it comes to ballet, different schools do have a range of different ways of describing the same step. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.